Hello there, dear viewer, welcome to yet another divine build, an entry to a little collab I have with my friend PC Outcast. You can follow the link in the description to his Arkay themed build. Yes, this time around we have a Priestess of the God of Death, and what do we say to the God of Death? Yes, please. Well, I certainly say that after making another review of the Rings of Power. It's pure pain. For now, I can, however, make something fun. The Priestess of Arkay is technically a restoration mage. Thanks to a few mods, she can be very effective without much effort. The spells were chosen so that you can feel like your mere presence is hurting your enemies and like your magic is a little bit more like rituals or exorcisms and not simply flinging fireballs. So almost no projectile spells, but a lot of passive buffs and literal ritual master level spells in the late game and a lot of passive damage over time. Naturally, you are going to be especially powerful against the undead, but everything else is also going to fall like dry leaves sooner or later. And perhaps my favorite feature of the build is that she simply cannot die. There are several different ways of avoiding or cheating death here, mostly due to modded perks, abilities and spells. So without further ado, let's look at the mods. There is quite a few of them. Wintersun and Vokrii, of course, cannot be omitted. Arkay worship grants you a resurrection every once in a while after you've been dealt a killing blow. It also increases your health regeneration, which we are going to stack with a few different regenerations to become even harder to kill, like with the Troll's Blood spell from Odin Magic Overhaul or the perfectly balanced reworking of the Goldur's Amulet from Reliquary of Myth. It increases your regenerations, all 3 regenerations, and gives you yet another resurrection per day, so it is just made to stack with Wintersun Arkay. Mundus Standing Stone Overhaul is also perfectly balanced. It will improve the regeneration for all 3 attributes by another 50% and yet another 50% when you are below half health. Summermyst is here only for the Amplify Restoration enchantment, which can be simply replaced by a batch of strong Fortify Restoration potions, no biggie. The Priestess does not hunt for souls and doesn't enchant items. That would be rather jarring with the Exorcist roleplay. The only thing she wants to do with lost souls is to send them off to the afterlife. So all our items are uniques or generic pre-enchanted items. That's why Summermyst is optional. Morningstar is also used, but vanilla races can be used without that much loss in overall power levels. Speaking of which, we use a Breton as our race. Magic resistance and spell absorption, stacking with the alteration perks, is a tried and tested way to become quite immortal against magic dangers. We sort of have to do it here.
We kinda have to do this.
The attributes ratio is 4 points of magicka for 1 of health. This is so that we can cast master level spells easily later in the game. Very early you can go 1 for 1 until reaching approximately 200 points of base health. With your insane regeneration rate and a few ways of returning back to life, you are not going to need more, especially that we use a follower and a spirit guardian to fight for us and carry buffs of the aura spells from Triumvirate. Most of the time, these guys will take most of the heat of the battle, while you prepare your extremely shiny rituals, consecrating the ground around you and absorbing health from random targets. Yes, it will be extremely bright and shiny sometimes when you stack all your rituals on consecrated ground and storms of holy fury things. At times you won't see anything. You just have a bright, uniformly bright screen. The Standing Stone, as mentioned, is the lady from the Mundus mod. This brings your regeneration to insane levels as you get closer to death. And of course we worship Arkay with the Wintersun mechanics. The devotee status grants you a resurrection at the cost of your god's favor, and before that is reached, you will get a health regeneration boost, growing exponentially as you lose health. You really just refuse to die. The skills to perk are Restoration, Alteration, Alchemy, Destruction and Illusion. Restoration and Alteration are the absolute cornerstones, with most perks unlocked in the end, and the other ones are perked really lightly. It means the build can be considered complete soon after level 40, so yeah, it's also very efficient perk point wise. In Alteration we need most perks. You may choose not to max out your mage armor perks this time around. Eventually you will reach max damage reduction of dragon hide and some extra damage reduction of wards, which combined with your super fast health regeneration means little to no need for high armor rating. Before this point is reached, use your followers as damage sponges. You will be a very effective healer. You can keep them up and running for a very long time. Of course, we also want Okato's Preparation for free armor spells, stability to extend its duration, and Sorcerer's Robes to empower all your spells. All of them. Force of Will and Ritualist are playstyle defining perks for the late game. Ritualist allows you to cast master level ritual spells while moving, which means we can pretty much rely on those spells with our hefty amount of magicka. Force of Will grants some extra damage reduction while dual casting any spell, hence most of our magic schools should have their dual casting perks unlocked. On the right hand side of the alteration tree we need 2 or 3 ranks of magic resistance to stack with our lovely racial benefits and the items. You will reach the cap if you use the exact item loaded as I am using. If you want to change the boots or ring, or are not using Reliquary of Myth, you may need the final rank. 2. Alter Self was taken to increase your magicka by 25 points, of course, and the second rank was used for shock and fire resistance. Then I went up the branch to reach the wonderful Headhot's escape, paralyzing an enemy who would otherwise bring you down to 0 HP. Just one of a few ways of escaping death with this character. In Restoration we also take most of the stuff. On the left hand side we want to reach both ranks of Sun's Judgment and Rebuke Undead. Yes, we also have a few destruction spells, but even those will deal some sun damage mixed with the fire damage. Dealing some sun damage to all types of enemies, not just the undead, is nearly a must for the build. Considering the insane amounts of damage over time, Rebuke Undead will be extra deadly for you. Your turn undead spells will disintegrate all undead below 35% of health, and all the undead around will go below that threshold quite fast. It will turn your Circle of Protection into a deadly thing. We want the ward perks too, all of them, and probably ASAP, as they will actually become less useful late game when you have max magic and damage resistance at all times. Then we go for both ranks of Inspire to passively heal all nearby allies, and even the Necromage, this time around used very modestly just to gain extra spell damage against the undead. No roleplay breaking vampirism, no exploits. Our mods are already creating all the OP things. Then the entire rightmost branch with both ranks of Inner Light to get some substantial magicka regeneration, stacking with 2 of our items, making regaining your magicka barely an inconvenience. We then take Blessed and, most importantly, Intervention, which is our another third or fourth way of coming back to life in the unlikely event of losing all our HP. In Destruction and Illusion we only need Mastery and dual casting in both. I used Illusion mainly for Exile and Exodus spells, both removing its targets from the world entirely. 15 seconds for Exile and a full minute for Exodus. This seems suitable for an Exorcist, but Exile is also a rather easy way to avoid combat early game when your damage output is still a little bit subpar. The only destruction spells I used regularly, except Flames very early on, are Consecrated Ground and Storm of Vengeance. They both deal a bit of damage over time in a large area around you for 30 seconds. They stack with each other and with Stendarr's aura. This is why most things will die without even touching you. And to easily enhance the effectiveness of all our spells, we also have a fairly limited perk point investment in Alchemy. We take Mastery, Benefactor, Experimenter and 1 or 2 ranks of Slow Metabolism. This is mainly to enhance your damage output with Fortify Restoration and Fortify Destruction potions. You may also make potions regenerating both your magicka and health over time. It's a low priority skill for this build, everything works fine without it, it's just that we may want some extra oomph on legendary difficulty. Now for the gear, we need Mage's Circlet, Master Robes of Restoration, the Amplify variant from Summermyst, Archmage's Gloves, Archmage's Boots, Ring of Finaster, and the Galdur's Amulet. This is a compromise of gameplay and fashion concerns. A full set of Reliquary of Myth Archmage's items would also work extremely well for the build, but Amplify Restoration is also quite useful to the build, and without crafting your own items, Amplify Restoration comes only in the form of a robe. And of course I realize, going through the entire College of Winterhold questline for an exorcist, a priest like that may be roleplay breaking for some, but there's a fair share of Draugr slaying involved in that questline, so maybe that's why she does it. I don't know. Archmage's Boots in Reliquary of Myth will grant you a 25% magic resistance, which is rather insane for a Breton, and the gloves will provide you with a rather impressive 175% increase in magicka regeneration. The Ring of Finaster will grant you another 20% magic and shock resistance. It is quite worth some quality fishing time required to obtain it. You may also opt for the Warlock's Ring that would grant you some extra health regeneration. And most importantly of all, we so need the Galdur's Amulet here. With the load order presented before, it will grant you the vanilla 30 points of each attribute, but also extra 15% regeneration of all three. On top of that, it can also resurrect you once every 20 minutes, just in case your Arkay and the Restoration perk resurrections are already used. It's all perfectly balanced. I also wear a blue cape from Capes and Cloaks, as well as a little blue cloth skirt from Modular Clothing System. They do absolutely nothing to the mechanics of the build, they just make her look a little bit less like an NPC. Here's the rough list of your go-to spells. Only Spirit Storm will deal damage directly to your selected targets and will absorb stamina and magicka, and then, after those are depleted, it will absorb health. Instead, you want to open most fights by casting Consecrated Ground for some holy DOT. Then go for another DOT of Storm of Vengeance. After that, either go for Stendarr's Aura for another bit of DOT around you, or Troll's Blood and Visions of Healing. Visions of Healing absorb health from a random target nearby. It can reach 250 points of health absorbed once every few seconds. Stacking with the stupid amounts of health regeneration, it is yet another part of our elaborate immortality equation. Obviously, the summonable follower of the Guardian's Spirit spell had to be used here. I'm sorry, I know I use it very often, but it's just so darn convenient, especially for a restoration build like this, who may be a little bit limited in terms of damage dealing. I mean, we will eventually deal some insane damage to everything around us, but it will take quite some time to accomplish this. You can also go for Mass Immortality or Spirit of the Sun Master restoration spells from time to time. They make your entire team unkillable. Shield of Awe is another nice ritual. It makes enemies within its circle much weaker to all magic, including all your silly damage over time spells. With some late game restoration potions, this spell can apply around 400 weakness to magic to all enemies within its range. 400! It is absolutely balanced and it absolutely doesn't break the game. No, shh. But before master level spells are easy to cast, the aura spells from Triumvirate will be your best friends. Especially Aura of Might and later Aura of Thorns. They are both used to deal a lot of damage to enemies currently engaged in melee combat with your followers. Alright, let's summarize. The build achieves insane levels of power with very limited crafting. She is dealing with her foes with little to no direct contact. In fact, after you fire up all your passive boons and damage over time, you can just chill and watch everything going down. Nobody will be able to kill you anyway, so you can just approach a few Draugr to hug them with your Stendarr's Aura and Visions of Healing. Most importantly, it may be the most OP restoration mage I have ever played, so yay to me, I guess. So now we are done here. Remember to share, like and subscribe. Support me via Subscribe Star, if possible, of course, and we will see each other again. Bye bye.